I'd like to welcome you guys to the JS Online Mathematics class. My name is Bill Kuyava. I teach math at Cudahy High School and I teach an online class. And my goal here today is to give you a glimpse on what an online mathematics class would look like for you or your sons, daughters, grandsons, granddaughters that would be in high school. So I'm going to start with a topic that is pretty basic called a proportion. So what is a proportion? Well, let me start by giving you an example of a fraction. Okay, here's a fraction, 4 over 8. Now, if you would give this to a student in a math class or anyone in general and said, okay, what does 4 over 8 really mean? Well, another way to write 4 over 8 is it's a half. Now, these fractions are equal, they're equivalent, and that's really what a proportion is. A proportion is it's two equal fractions. Now, when students usually see proportions, it's usually a 7th or 8th grade, it's a middle school topic, but they may see a problem that looks sort of like this. Okay, we'll give them this. And the instructions will say solve for x. And teachers always start off with these types of problems first before they get into applying what a proportion is. And usually proportions are applied, I'll say here, problems of interest. They're word problems, different applications. Very common. I chose this topic because, people always want to know where would I use this in the real world. Proportions are something that you would use a lot. Anytime that you have a problem where there's percents or if there's maybe you're in, and I'll show you an example where there's a student that's baking cookies for a bake sale. They need to multiply their recipe for a certain amount. And anytime you do that type of thing, you're using a proportion. So let me go through the basic mathematics of how to solve it. Solving a proportion, the quick way, is to cross multiply. And what you do there is you take 30 times x, which is 30x, and 5 times 18, and yes, you may need your calculator, it's going to give you 90. And then you divide. So we divide by 30 to find out 30 times what, that equals 90, and you get 3. Now students are pretty good after a while of looking for shortcuts, and some of you may have noticed that if I take 5 times 6 I get 30, and therefore if I took something times 6 to get 18, that something would be 3, and that's our solution. And again, all you're really doing is you're using this concept of equivalent fractions. Here I'd multiply by 4 to get 4, and by 4 to get 8, and that's how proportions basically work. Now here's a problem that students would see. Very common. It says Brandon is planning on holding a bake sale to raise money for local charity. Brandon can bake 2 dozen cookies in 30 minutes. If he plans on baking 200 cookies, how much time will he spend cooking? Okay, well, here's the thing with proportions. In the previous example, I said that you want to have 2 equal fractions. So what students have to get good at, and what you will in your homework assignment in a little bit, is they'll look at that, and you'll say, well, that gives me a fraction, and I'm going to do, I'm going to write this as my fraction. 12, actually it's 2 dozen, so that's going to be 24 over 30. Now that's my fraction. When you write a proportion, you have to keep in mind what the numbers in your proportion stand for. So in this case, the top number is going to be the cookies that Brandon is baking, and the bottom number is time in minutes, and the unit is important. So here it says he plans on baking 200 cookies, so I need to put 200 cookies where in my next fraction? That needs to be on top. And our unknown, which is time, will be x. So yes, the numbers here are a little bit bigger, but again, the process is the same. We're going to cross multiply. So we're going to take 30 times 200. For those of you that do not have a calculator, we'll work it out the slow way for you. So that's 6,000. And that's going to give you 24x. Now I hope you remember how we solved it before. We divided by 24. And we'll have to do that again. For those of you without a calculator, we'll do it the long way. Some of you haven't done this in quite a while. That's good. It's good practice. Let's say it's going to be 2, which is 48. Subtract those, you get 12, which is 120. And I believe that's 5. So it's 250, and that's 250 minutes, which is approximately, it's a long time. It would be 4 hours and 10 minutes baking cookies on a good day's work, and it's for a good cause, for charity. So if you go to the worksheet section, I'm going to give you 3 questions where it's going to tax your knowledge of the Green Bay Packers, the NFL season, and so on. I'll give you a little bit of information. Feel free to look at that. And there is an answer key. Please work out the problems first so you're not tempted to look at the answers afterward. And thanks for listening.